YouTube live update. As we go into our next weather maker, it is already starting to roll in, at least the first wave of it is, but some big changes as compared to what we've seen throughout the week are on the way as we head into this weekend. So we'll go through that and let you know what kind of impacts we could see, watches, advisories, warnings that are in place for the wintry side of this, as well as, again, some of the active weather that is ongoing right now. We'll just start off with the live looks across the area. Butte, Bozeman, we're quiet right now, but as we look towards Kalispell and Missoula, Kalispell, you might catch a few flashes of lightning every once in a while. I've seen a few of those already. Missoula, the rain has begun in the city. So, and like I said, this is just the first wave of this storm system, and if you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute, I will get everything here working behind the scenes, and we'll get started with this. There we go. That is working. All right, we are in good shape. So, I think let's get going with this. I'll go into a little bit more detail, so this one might take just a little bit longer than some of these have, but that's why I want to jump into it now. Again, thank you all for tuning in this evening. I think we'll get more people as we go throughout this update, but the key takeaway is we've got a pretty decent system that's going to be moving in for this weekend. First wave's coming in tonight. We're going to see more of that into Saturday, but Saturday night through Monday morning is really going to be the peak of this event, with some accumulating mountain snowfall, some travel impacts over our passes, and the driver for all of this is this large trough of low pressure, this spinning low right here. And I'm not going to leave this on too long because as it loops, it keeps flashing there. But in general, this is a large trough of low pressure. This is going to bring some cooler air into the region as we get into the latter parts of this weekend. But in the meantime, with that southwesterly flow, we're seeing that rain across the area. And like I said, Missoula, we're starting to see more of that rain in the valley right now. Had a few lightning strikes kind of in the background behind where this camera is facing right now. I've seen a few flashes, but haven't seen any lightning strikes themselves. As for those temperatures, we saw those into the 70s and 80s for most locations. Missoula, I believe, reached at least 81 degrees this afternoon. We're back into the 50s and 60s right now. Rain showers again, Kalispell, Missoula. Winds upwards to about 25 to 30 miles per hour. And with these showers and weak thunderstorms, could see some occasionally gusty winds with these. So no surprise there with the stronger winds. But again, 50s, 60s, we're going to continue to see those temperatures cooling as we go over the next little bit. And you can see this moisture really right up and down US 93, some of the heaviest of this activity. I am going to loop this really quick to kind of give you the sense of how this rolled in. Had the first little piece of energy move into northwest Montana earlier, and then it's really just filled in over the last, say, 1 to 2 hours. Also, one note, because I'm thinking of this off the top of my head, this will help out crews that are on the Weeksville fire there west of Plains. We had a new fire start earlier this afternoon, and went up to, I believe, about 75 acres. Went up pretty quickly, but a lot of this rain right now is falling right on top of that. And as I zoom in a little bit closer after I stop this, I can show you roughly where that fire was lit. So here's Plains. It was up in this area to the north and west of Plains, so just along Highway 200 here between Plains and Thompson Falls. But again, that was up to around 75 acres, started earlier today, and fortunately is getting a little bit of rainfall on it. Again, should allow crews to get on top of that. And with much, much cooler temperatures, all of the still active wildfires in our area should be getting some help as well. Now, like I mentioned before, we've got one of those stronger batches of activity, some moderate rainfall from Kalispell down to about Summers. This will be moving across the Flathead Valley, areas over here towards Creston, and depending on the track, maybe a little bit further north up towards Columbia Falls and hungry horse over the next little bit. There's that lightning strike I was telling you about. There is a couple of lightning strikes. There's not many of them with this activity, but don't be surprised to maybe hear a rumble of thunder with this. Got some more that has just passed through the US 93 corridor, or at least the heaviest of it, through St. Ignatius, Arlie. And that's where we're starting to see this. This will be actually moving off towards Highway 83 over the next little bit, so Seeley Lake up towards Condon. You're next in line for this. A little bit more moderate rainfall that'll be pushing into St. Ignatius, Charlotte, Ronan, Nine Pipes over the next little bit. And then we come a little bit further south, and we saw that last batch just go through Lolo and Missoula. The heaviest of this now moving into the Rattlesnake National Recreation Area over towards East Missoula, Bonner, and that'll also continue that track off to the north. Gets a little bit lighter and more isolated the further south we go down into the Bitterroot Valley, but as you can see back into Idaho, there is a fair bit more moisture that will be rolling in, and this is simply just the start of what's coming. I'm going to change the look really quick and give you a sense of all the moisture that's still back off to the west. All of this back into Oregon, California, Washington, Idaho. This is all going to be wrapping around that low pressure system and impacting us at least in some way, which honestly, we need all the moisture we can get. So we'll take this all day long. Fortunately, other than maybe a couple of thunderstorms tonight, and again tomorrow, I think this is primarily going to be a rain event for Saturday. Saturday nights where things will get much more interesting when it comes to this storm system. So here's really the key takeaway of what we're tracking. This trough of low pressure is moving in. It's going to bring a pretty significant cold front in Saturday evening and into Sunday. Again, that's going to be the peak of this system. So with the rain and the clouds in place for tomorrow, temperatures will be cooler back down into the 50s, maybe a few low 60s. Still should be primarily rain, but then we get into Saturday night and Sunday. That's when that cold front moves through. We're going to still be primarily valley rain, but elevation or higher elevation snow is going to become the bigger focus of this. Now, looking at tomorrow before we get into specifics of this storm system, I know we've got some big events across the area. We've got Montana State football. We've got University of Montana's homecoming. So I want to go through those forecasts just really quick before we really jump into this storm system in more detail. So University of Montana's homecoming. We have the parade at 10 a.m. Temperatures right around 48 degrees. The football game is at 2. Temperatures in the mid-50s for most of the game. One bit of good news, earlier in the week, we were looking at more widespread shower activity for Saturday midday, Saturday afternoon. So it did look like it was going to be a pretty soggy football game, at least, as of, say, 2 days ago. Models have trended back, at least on the amount of activity during the afternoon. It's picked it up for tonight and then again into Saturday night. But there does look like there's going to be at least a little bit of a gap for, again, the parade and the game in Missoula, to where I won't say we will be completely dry, but the rain chances are only about, say, 20 to 30% in comparison to, unfortunately, when I pull up Bozeman, where it's much, much higher for those rain chances. So still, I'd say have the rain gear if you're heading to the parade or the football game. You may not need it, but I'd rather, if it were me in that position, I'd rather say I had it but didn't need it instead of I needed it and didn't have it. So again, overall, not a bad day as long as we can keep that rain away for those festivities. But like I said, going over to Bozeman, you are going to want the rain gear. Unfortunately, we're looking at very high likelihood of consistent rainfall, and we'll look at that in Future Tracker here in just a moment. But temperatures mid to upper 50s are going to be common for the game. Rain chances 80 to 90%, and this could be moderate rainfall too. So this may not just be that light drizzly rain. Hopefully that if it is raining, that is what it is. We're not having to be completely soaked. This could be some of that more moderate type of rainfall that will definitely give you a good soaking if you're over in Bozeman for that game. Again, they're hosting Idaho State. University of Montana is hosting Cal Poly. So I'll say this from a football aspect. Because of the drier conditions, I would say we're going to see a good mix of run and pass over here in Missoula. Over in Bozeman with all the rain, I think it's going to be a highly focused run game, just depending on how heavy that rain's coming down. Just my thoughts when it comes to weather and sports. But let me check really quick because I did see a comment pop up. This is just as I'm checking that really quick. Phil, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the chat section. I'll try and keep an eye on those because I saw it pop up on my phone. I don't see it on here yet, but when it pops up over here on the chat section on the computer, I'll take a look at that because, like I said, I did see that. Let me get back on track. I got a little off course there. But again, really this storm system is going to take off as we head into Saturday evening and Sunday, and that's going to be the biggest time frame for this storm system. And starting off with the winter weather advisories here in this purple shade, the winter storm warnings here in blue, and the winter storm watches here in blue, and the winter storm warnings there in pink. When we get into those winter storm watches, winter storm warnings, those are the ones that give us the highest likelihood of seeing impactful weather with this storm system. But even in the advisory, we're still going to have at least the potential for past travel impacts with this storm system. So all of these, for the most part, will begin tomorrow evening. It is a 6 p.m. start time for the winter storm warnings here in the West Glacier, as well as East Glacier and Southern Rocky Mountain Front regions. And those will be continuing through Monday at noon. And that goes for all of these winter weather advisories and winter storm watches. Those go through Monday morning. I believe these over here in Idaho, the Clearwater Mountains, those might start an hour earlier, but I think it's just due to the time change. So in general, tomorrow evening through Monday morning is where we're going to be seeing that. All right, I finally got that the chat section to work up. This is from Godfrey888. This is a blast watching winter practicing precipitation. As you said, we need every drop. This is very, very true. Splendid news for the Bitterroot Valley. Really appreciate the information. Clear, simple, and good delivery. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I always hope my goal is always to help at least get that information out. Sometimes I'll admit I get a little bit rambly on these, but hope to give as much information as I can for as many folks as will listen. So even after this YouTube live's done, feel free to share this with your friends and family. Again, it's one of our first, it is the biggest winter storm we've seen so far this season. At least could have the highest impacts of the two that we have seen. Or I guess this is the second one, but this will be the bigger of those two. So, like I said, rambling, getting a little distracted, but again, thank you for the very, very kind comment. As for this storm system, let's go time this out, and this is where we're at right now. It's done a pretty good job picking up on those scattered showers in northwest and west central Montana. Overnight, we'll see more of these start to spread into places like Butte and Dillon. Continuing over to Ennis, Bozeman, West Yellowstone. This is looking around 2 a.m. You see two primary areas. This one down east of Interstate 15, south of I-90, and the second one over here for areas along and west of the divide, really from Missoula up to Kalispell and east from there. Watch as we go overnight. It's pretty isolated in nature, so we have a little bit more consistent, scattered activity right now with this first wave. It starts to taper off a little bit into the morning hours. There's still going to be some showers out there. No two ways around it, but we're probably looking at percentages about 20 to 40% outside of maybe far northwestern Montana, places like Noxon, Libby, up towards Eureka, potentially. This will continue to be the case through much of the morning. This is right, again, 10 a.m. For the homecoming parade here in Missoula. Looking pretty dry. It's still going to be mostly cloudy, but pretty quiet overall outside of a few lighter showers, as it looks like right now. But then you look down here towards Bozeman. Really, I think Interstate 15 is going to be a pretty decent dividing line. West of that, it's going to be a lot more isolated. East of that, for tomorrow, a lot more in the way of consistent rainfall. And some of that could be heavy, as you see down over here into Broadwater County, north of Townsend. At least this particular model is picking up on some heavier rain, maybe a thunderstorm or two. This is, may not be exactly in that place, but it gives you the sense a few thunderstorms can't be ruled out as we head into tomorrow morning. And then we see more of that rain pushing into Bozeman. Now, one change, and this is the first time I've looked at the newest run of this model. This is also showing a few breaks in the rain showers down here towards Bozeman. Hopefully that's the case where we aren't completely just in a gully washer for that football game where we're just completely getting soaked in it. Maybe we get a little bit of a break. That's looking around 3 p.m. I would still be prepared for moderate rainfall, heavy at times tomorrow afternoon before we get to the cold air. And at this point, this is about when that cold front starts pushing through the area. This is getting into the evening hours. It's at 6 p.m. when those winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings all go into effect. And this is when I'll say the real show of this storm begins. You see those blues and pinks showing up down here in southwest Montana and northwest Montana. At this point, snow levels will begin to fall from around, say, 7,000 to 8,000 feet down to around 5,000 feet, 4,500 feet into the overnight hours. So we're going to start to see that mountain snow accumulate. We'll get a stronger push of cold air up here into northwest Montana. So into really Glacier National Park and back over to the east side of the divide. There could be some heavy snowfall, so Logan Pass, Marias Pass over towards East Glacier Park. Could be dealing with heavy snow at this point, and some strong winds. Gusty winds 30 to 40 miles per hour can't be ruled out. Maybe not quite as much in the snowfall rates with the batch of activity down towards Big Sky, but still some accumulating snowfall. Could see over a foot down towards Big Sky with this event. But for our valleys, at this point, we are still all rain. We're still going to see those snow levels up. Again, 4,500 feet. That continues into Sunday morning. You can kind of see the Flathead Valley right in there in this little arc around Kalispell. We'll see that precipitation really just sticking around throughout the day on Sunday. Maybe a little bit of a lull into about midday up into northwest Montana and especially down into southwestern portions of the state. But then a secondary low is going to move in on Sunday, reinforce that moisture and reinforce the cold air. And you see that really start to filter in from Interstate 90 and north, more isolated from south of I-90. But this is looking into Sunday evening, Sunday night, and this is one thing that's going to be very interesting to watch. I'll use Missoula as an example. See how at 7, 8 o'clock this is all green in here? Watch as I go a little bit further, and also Kalispell, you're in the blue at this point. So Sunday evening, as those snow levels fall, they could fall all the way down to valley floors. It does look like they will do so. It just, the question mark is how much moisture is sticking around at this point. If this particular model holds true, we could be talking about snowfall in our valleys for places like Kalispell, Polson, Missoula, Hamilton. Butte, I think you're going to have a much better chance of seeing snowfall even as early as Sunday morning from this storm. But watch how that just kind of sticks around. All throughout Monday morning, we're still dealing with some at least light snow. It begins to taper off the later on into the day we go, and by Monday afternoon, just a few showers, maybe even a few flurries lingering around, but still accumulating snow through this whole period. Once we get beyond Saturday evening, up in our mountains over 4,500 feet. Again, the question mark really just comes down to how quickly do those snow levels fall Sunday night into Monday, and how much moisture is still available. I think for most valleys, we're going to be talking maybe just a dusting of snow, half an inch at tops. The one exception, up towards Kalispell, we could be closer up to an inch there. Further north, where there's a bit more cold air that's going to be in place, Eureka, up towards, say, Stryker and Olney and Fortin, you can at least maybe see the potential of some higher totals, about 1 to 3 inches. There are some indications that could even be higher, closer to 4 inches. Still a lot of question marks that have to be determined as we go into Sunday and Monday. But in general, just be aware we could see our first snowflakes down in the valleys. Again, most areas, I don't think we're going to see any kind of impact from this. Surface temperatures have been so warm lately that any of that snowfall that does reach the ground will likely melt on the roads pretty quickly. If we do see any accumulation anywhere in our valleys, it would just primarily be on grassy surfaces. Biggest issue from there would actually be overnight temperatures falling below freezing and allowing for that moisture to refreeze. So, going into the snowfall up in our mountain passes, again, this is going to be the focus. I think most of our pass areas, we're talking about 1 to 4 inches. So Lookout, Lolo, Lost Trail, Homestake, Bozeman, McDonald. It's as we get into Rogers and Marias passes, as well as to Logan Pass and Glacier National Park, that is where we could be talking much heavier snowfall from this storm system. And just to give you a sense of the snowfall potential up there, I just want to read through the winter storm warning that is going to be in place for the West Glacier region. The East Glacier Park region has just been added to it earlier this evening. So I'm just going to read through this. So winter storm warning is in effect from 6 p.m. Saturday to noon Monday for the West Glacier region. So that does include Marias Pass, West Glacier, back down towards Hungry Horse, and Glacier National Park itself. Heavy snow expected. There's a likelihood of major winter weather impacts to isolated extreme winter storm impacts. Total snow accumulations up to 3 inches in the valleys. So this would be places like West Glacier, Hungry Horse, like I mentioned, Coram, Martin City. So 3 inches, or up to 3 inches in the valleys, with 5 to 12 inches in the higher terrain and mountain passes. The highest peaks could receive up to 20 inches. So those highest peaks in Glacier National Park, we could be talking 1 to nearly 2 feet of snow. That's why I think Marias Pass, that might be a little overdone in that 12 to 16. I think 4 to 12 is a little, that would be a better range there. So 4 to 8, 4 to 12, somewhere in there. Long story short, those two passes specifically are the ones that I have the greatest concern with, at least dealing with travel impacts. But even those other ones, where we're talking 1 to 4 inches, I think most of those probably won't see too much problem, again, because of those warm surface temperatures. But if it comes down really fast, and it just happens to be while you're traveling through there, you could see some reduced visibility due to the heavy snowfall. You could even start getting some accumulation on the roads, but that's really going to be a localized type of thing. We'll have to just kind of watch and see. Hopefully we don't have any big time travel impacts, but with the first pretty decent sized storm system of the year, it's something we'll just have to keep a close eye on. The other thing I did want to bring up, like I was mentioning earlier, the winter storm watches, those are still some question marks. These are, especially these up here into the Kootenai Cabinet region. For that winter storm watch, possibility that it gets upgraded to a winter storm warning. There's also the possibility it gets dropped down to a winter weather advisory. But for that one, same time frame, Saturday evening to Monday morning, heavy snow possible, total snow accumulations up to 3 inches in the valleys, up to 15 inches in the higher terrain. So that would be, again, places like, sorry about that. I hit a wrong button as I was trying to get back to the screen, popped away for just a minute there. But getting back to where I was, that winter storm watch for the Kootenai Cabinet region, higher elevations, upwards to 15 inches of snow in the mountains, 3 inches for our valleys. So this again would be places like Troy, Libby, over towards the Yak Valley, where we could be seeing some of those impacts. So just because we're getting short on time, it's already 9:30. I got to get a few things finished up before the 10 o'clock show. But I've talked a lot about the snow. The other side of this is going to be the rain, and there's going to be a fair amount of rainfall with this storm system, even if we aren't dealing with the with the snowfall down in our valleys. This is just looking through, say, Monday evening, where, let me see, there we go. A couple of things were not popping up like they should have been. probably a quarter of an inch to maybe a half an inch of precipitation for most of the region. One exception maybe down here towards the Pioneer Mountains. There's been a bit of a dry slot showing up in a lot of the forecast models, helping to keep those totals down. But I think a tenth of an inch to a half an inch of rainfall for our valleys, that's going to be common. We could see some localized totals of a half an inch to an inch, just depending on if you get underneath some consistent rainfall, any of these thunderstorms. And then in the higher elevations, where we get up in our highest peaks, we could be talking snowfall in, over a foot. Places like the Whitefish, Swan, Mission Mountains, we'll probably see those snow water equivalents pretty high. So this is going to be heavy, wet snow. So some decent moisture should come out of this. And like we mentioned earlier, we will take every bit of this moisture that we possibly can, because we've been in a pretty significant drought across the entirety of the area. So that's pretty much everything that I had. I'll start wrapping this up. If you have any questions or comments, this is kind of the last call for those. But the key takeaways: isolated to scattered showers and weak thunderstorms tonight and into at least the first part of Saturday. Not looking at a ton of coverage as things stand right now, but then we get into Saturday evening, Sunday. That's when that next storm system really starts to take shape. We're going to see widespread rainfall, as well as the potential for mountain snow accumulating, especially into northwest Montana, Marias Pass, Rogers Pass. Could see some moderate to major travel impacts up there, just depending on how quickly that snow starts to melt off of the roads. We're going to see the potential of about 4 to 8 inches on average up there for those passes, but some isolated totals upwards to about 12 inches. And looking at places like Essex and Pinnacle, could see some of that as well. For a lot of our other passes, we're talking 1 to 4 inches across the region. The one exception, again, maybe down in southwest Montana, Monida Pass, and then I'm blanking on it, what it is, Big Hole Pass, where we could see at least a little bit of drier weather moving in. So that's the mountain snow side of this. Yes, there is a valley snow potential as we get into Sunday night and Monday morning. Really, the timing of how quickly those snow levels fall to valley floors will be the big deciding factor on if we do see any kind of accumulation. Best chances will be into northwest Montana, areas from US 2 and north, where we could see upwards to about an inch, and then higher totals further north with a little bit more cold air in place. But like I said, still plenty of questions to watch that. We'll get a better idea when the system fully moves in tomorrow. As for the rain side, about a tenth to a half an inch of rain, I think, is going to be common for most of the region. Some isolated totals, half an inch to an inch, will be possible. So thank you all for tuning in this evening. If you have any photos or videos of the storm system as it's rolling through, be it from the rainy side of it to the snowy side, maybe even getting some, I'll call them snowleage photos, snow with the autumn leaves, feel free to share those photos and videos with us at nbcmontana.com/chime in. Same thing if you're going to the homecoming events tomorrow, the parade, the game. Feel free to share those festivities with us. You might see your photos or videos on air and online. If you have any travel plans over the passes Saturday night through Monday morning, be aware of that potential for winter driving conditions. Have an emergency kit available just in case that you need it. But really, I think most of our passes shouldn't be too bad, other than maybe for some brief periods of time, or if there happens to be an accident. Again, the exception, northwest Montana, Marias, as well as towards Rogers Pass, and even places, some of our passes that normally shut down during the winter, Thompson over north of Lookout Pass, and then Skalkaho Pass between Hamilton and Phillipsburg. There could be some issues there up towards the top of those. So I've rambled on enough. This has gone on for half an hour, so thank you all for tuning in, spending a little bit of your Friday evening with me. Stay safe, stay warm, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all on in a much cooler type of weather as we head into early next week. And I'll probably jump in for another YouTube live update to kind of talk about what this storm has done and look ahead to the rest of next week here coming up on Monday. So tune into our live broadcast coming up here in half an hour, and then of course tune in this weekend for all your latest news and weather updates. Until next time, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs with NBC Montana.